Right before we jump into this video, if you haven't signed up for the Front Nose Photo email list, just look for the orange box over on the website, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I will send you a free guide to capturing motion in low-light situations. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a side-by-side comparison between the Canon 5D Mark III and the 5D Mark IV. Now, I'm going to be going over the specs, and I want to help you decide if you already have a 5D Mark III, whether you should upgrade to the 5D Mark IV, or if you've been waiting for the 5D Mark IV to come out to see what would happen with the price of the 5D Mark III. I am here to help you figure that out, and this is not a review of the 5D Mark IV. We'll have a full one of those out in the not-too-distant future. So let's get into the specs, starting with the price point. The 5D Mark III is currently selling new for $25.99, but you can get it refurbed for $20.99 at the Canon store online, and the 5D Mark IV is $34.99 new. So that's our base starting point. You have to remember that when the 5D Mark III came out, it was also priced at $34.99. So obviously you can see the 5D Mark III is less expensive than the 5D Mark IV. So let's look at the megapixels. You have 22.3 megapixels in the Canon 5D Mark III, and you have 30.4 megapixels on the 5D Mark IV. So in this case, the 5D Mark IV is going to be a little better because it has more megapixels. It's newer, it's an upgraded sensor, but that is a given between the two cameras that are 4 years apart. The Mark III has a Digic 5 Plus processor, and the Mark IV has a Digic 6 Plus processor. So just for processing power, it's going to be slightly better on this, but again, that is a given. ISO range, ISO 100 to 25,600 on the Mark III, and you have 100 to 32,000 on the Mark IV. So that's not even a full stop better. But part of the reason why it's not a full stop better on the Mark IV is that it's 30.4 megapixels. They've upped the megapixels, but they weren't able to expand the ISO because of that. But being that it's 4 years newer, it should give you cleaner ISOs at much higher places than what the 5D Mark III could do. In my experience, I really didn't want to go past 12,800 in this bad boy, and with my limited testing experience of this camera, I've gone up to the 32,000, and it looked pretty good, at least in the sample images that I was taking. Now let's move on to the card formats. The 5D Mark III has a compact flash card and an SD card slot, and then the 5D Mark IV has, wait for it, compact flash and an SD card slot. So the only thing that got updated there is that the SD slot is now UHS 1 supportive. So that means it supports those type of SD cards. It should have gone further. That's one of the main reasons that people are complaining and trying to figure out should they stick with the 5D Mark III or the 5D Mark IV. It should have had CFast, and it should have had the UHS 2 support. In terms of frames per second, the 5D Mark III does 6, and the 5D Mark IV now offers you 7. So slightly better there. Are you going to have a noticeable difference between the two of them? Not really so much, but where you will see a slight difference is that with the 6 frames a second, you can get 18 to the compact flash card and 12 to the SD in full RAW to the 5D Mark III. It would have been better if they went with the CFast and the UHS 2 slots, of course, but in this case, the 21 frames and the 19 frames is a little bit of an upgrade over what the 5D Mark III is doing. It should have been more, but we've already established that. So moving on to the next thing, let's talk about the screens. You have a 3.2-inch screen on the 5D Mark III, and on the 5D Mark IV, you have a 3.2-inch screen that is fully active touchscreen. One of my favorite features in a camera is to have it touchscreen, and it's also a 60% higher resolution screen. Now let's take a look at the autofocus system. With the 5D Mark III, you have 61 autofocus points, with 41 of them being cross types. On the other side, the 5D Mark IV has 61 autofocus points, with 41 of them being cross type. You may be saying, is that exactly the same Well, yes, it's exactly the same, but what they've done is they've expanded the focusing points to cover more vertically, so you have a little bit more reach there, and it's also an updated autofocus system that's supposed to be the same, if not similar to, the one in the Canon 1DX Mark II. So which of these two cameras offers you Wi-Fi built in? Well, it's the 5D Mark IV. It offers you Wi-Fi, NFC, as well as GPS, where the 5D Mark III did not have Wi-Fi built in, and it also does not support the new Wi-Fi adapter that Canon just released. The 5D Mark IV adds a new feature called Dual Pixel RAW that allows you to shoot in a new format that gives you micro adjustments after the fact to your focus. If you miss slightly, you may be able to make an adjustment in the computer to get a sharper image. On the other side, it didn't have it, but that was 4 years ago. Not a deal breaker at all. We'll see where that technology leads us. So now let's get into the ergonomics. The bodies are pretty much exactly the same with some minor tweaks. The 5D Mark IV is 2 ounces lighter than the 5D Mark III. Where did they get the savings? I honestly have no idea. They both take the same exact battery, so battery life should be pretty similar, except when you get into shooting 4K video, which we'll get to in the video section. The 5D Mark IV has added a new joystick to the back of it, which is updated from the 5D Mark III. You also have the new AF area select button, which comes in handy. I like that. It's not in the 5D Mark III. You have more button remapping options in the 5D Mark IV. One of those that I absolutely love is the ability to make the back button focus change between AF servo and single focus with the press of the button. You can't do the same thing over here on this camera. It is a nice added function that they added in the Mark IV. For those of you who like to shoot tethered, you now have USB 3.0 in this camera. You only had 2.0 in this camera, so if you're in the studio and you need to get faster transfer rates from your camera, the 5D Mark IV is going to be the one that may be for you. The 5D Mark IV has added a new mirror system. It's the same one that they added in the 5DS and the 5DSR. It's going to give you less mirror bounce as well as less blackout time in the viewfinder. That's just a slight upgrade over what the 5D Mark III gave you. Another difference that you'll find with the two cameras is that you have what's called a viewfinder 2 in the newer camera, where you didn't have that in the older one. And what that's giving you is more information when you're looking into the viewfinder. You can have more information about what focusing modes you're on, what ISO you're on, whether you're shooting RAW or JPEG. It's really a pleasure to shoot with. Now that I've shot with it, I absolutely love the new viewfinder. Another minor difference is you'll find better weather sealing in the 5D Mark IV than you will find in the 5D Mark III, and I think that brings us to one of the biggest tests to determine which camera is better, and that, of course, is the wind tunnel test. Let's turn both of these cameras to the side and see which one will fare better in the Phronos Photo wind tunnel. Here we go. DNA sold separately. All right, let me make sure I have the right cameras on both sides. Yep, that's the Mark III over here, and this is the Mark IV over here. Ooh. It's a tough call. I actually think that the 5D Mark III wins the wind tunnel test because it has a little bit more of a sleeky curve. I know everybody was waiting for the wind tunnel, and that's all they really care about, but let's get into the video specs. So the 5D Mark III gave you some nice options when it came to video, at least when it came out, and we know that the 5D Mark IV is upgraded, so let's take a look at some of the differences. The 5D Mark III does 1080p at 30 frames a second in 420, and it also gives you 720p at 60 frames a second. Moving over to the 5D Mark IV, it gives you 4K at 30 frames a second in the Motion JPEG codec. Now that is an older form of compression. Some people will be upset about that. The newer ones that some of the newer cameras are doing is H.264, which is a newer compression, and it's going to give you a smaller file size. The 5D Mark IV gives you 500 megabits per second, and remember that it does not have an updated memory card slot, so you are doing that to the compact flash card or to the SD if it's a supported SD card for shooting 4K. But don't worry, it will shoot 4K to the compact flash card as long as you have a fast enough card to support it. And we even tested out a UHS-2 SD card in this camera, and it actually did record fully in the 4K, but when we tested a UHS 1 card in the camera, it stopped every 2 minutes. You also have full DCI cinema at 4096 by 2160, but one of the major issues is it does the 4K, but it does it at a 1.74 times crop factor, so that means you are losing that extra wide angle when you throw on something like the 11 to 24. A lot of people want full frame and want full frame that does full on 4K so that you can take advantage of the widest lenses possible. For those photojournalists out there that are going to be shooting 4K video, you also have the ability to pull out 8 megapixel stills from that footage. So this camera also gives you 1080p at 60 frames a second, where the 5D Mark III only gave you 30 frames a second, but the bit rates are basically the same between both cameras. So if you're just looking to shoot in 1080, maybe you stick with a 5D Mark III and pick one up refurbed. That could be a better option. Also, if you're somebody who likes to shoot with something like an Atomos, an external recorder, you can't get a 4K clean out from this camera. You can only get 1080, which means you can also only get 1080 out from the 5D Mark III. And since they're basically exactly the same, you may be better off going with something like this. Of course, the ISOs are going to be slightly different, but if all you're looking for is 1080 video straight out to an Atomos, 5D Mark III might be a better option. The 5D Mark IV gives you 720p at 120 frames a second, where we already said that this one did 720p at 60 frames a second. Moving into autofocus for video, the 5D Mark III, no autofocus for video except for when you press the back button and it locks your focus in when you get it. Now the 5D Mark IV adds dual pixel AF, which is an incredible feature and function that we've tested out, and it works incredibly well. And a couple of minor additions: you have HDR video shooting in here, as well as a time-lapse mode. You did not have that in the 5D Mark III. So I'd love to hear your comments before I finish up this video. Leave them down below. Which one is going to be for you? Also give us a thumbs up if you like the video, and go ahead and subscribe right here on YouTube. So now it's time to decide which one is for you. Of course, you have to make the decision if it's a worthy upgrade for you. I think it's a worthy upgrade if you can afford it, but if you're not a full-on, full-time professional and you just love taking photos and you want to get better video, you can upgrade to a 5D Mark III refurb right now for $2,099 while the supplies last, I'm assuming, at Canon's website. But let's look at somebody who has a 5D Mark III. If you are a full-time working professional, is it a worthy upgrade to this camera? If you shoot stills, I think it is a worthy upgrade. If you're getting paid to take photos and you make money time in and time out, then yes, this tool is going to give you some new options that I think are going to make your job much easier. If you already own a 5D Mark III and you're not a full-time professional, or you don't think this is worth it upgrading for you because you don't need the 4K video, or something else gives you a better option, then obviously don't upgrade. But this is a great opportunity for somebody who's wanted to jump into the full frame game and get a really good professional camera for around $2,000 refurb. So if you have a 60D and you want to upgrade, this could be the option to do it and take the extra $1,500 that you're saving and put that into some good glass. So pretty much, guys, it comes down to you. Do you think it's a worthy upgrade? Let me know down below. I personally do, for the type of work that I do, and I really think it's a well put together camera with some major things that Canon left out. Of course, we'll review that all when we do the 5D Mark IV real world review. That video will be out shortly, but that's pretty much it, guys. This is a side-by-side comparison of the specs with some of my thoughts and ideas put in there. And really, it just comes down to what works for you out there. And that's where we'll leave it. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.